And go.
I was going to say, is it going to
Sorry.
play the recording? What's going on? Okay.
No, I don't know if it does. Who cares?
Okay.
It's time for Bourbon with Friends, the bourbon podcast that never takes itself too seriously. Pull up a chair, grab a glass, and remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world. Here we go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bourbon with Friends. Martin and myself will be your hosts this evening. I think Joe is where? Joe is in Kentucky.
He's at Wilderness Trail. Sorry, they have similar bottles. But no, he is at Wilderness Trail. So he left us to our own devices here to try to figure out technology, which we learned we didn't know how to do anything. So
right. Brian is on the mend.
Thanks, Joe. Can't wait for you to hear this. So you have to edit all this together. No, honestly, it's a cool opportunity. You had to go down there to Wilderness Trail, do like a little bit of the experience. I think I don't know if they're releasing something or if he's just got invited down there. Well, we all got invited. We just all couldn't go.
Yeah, there was some kind of tasting going on. I can't remember what I read it. I can't remember now, but I'm pretty sure it was like a tasting that they were doing down there.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet it's going to be a great time.
Well, anyways, that's enough about Joe. What did you do this weekend?
I worked at the distillery making cocktails. Yeah, it was really nice weather, but not a lot of customers. So people must have been.
I don't know what you made, and I'll have to go back and look because I didn't see your story from this weekend. But I saw my mom yesterday because it was Happy Mother's Day, and Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. If you guys celebrated yesterday, you're going to hear this a week later, but that's fine. But my mom goes, well, I'll try to do her accent. She goes, what was Adrienne making? I'm just like, oh, well, I don't know. I don't always see all of her stories. And she goes, it was a cocktail. I'm like, Mom, she's a bartender. So you're going to have to be a lot more specific about that. So I need to find out. It had a flower in it.
Probably the carrot margarita that I made last week. Remember?
It might have been. I'll ask her.
Yeah.
She said something about a flower in it. So I don't know if that was the same one, but I got to go to a distillery this weekend very briefly. I went to Journeyman, met Patty and Caesar, our friends Patty and Caesar,
right.
Our fellow bad neighbors out there at Journeyman Distillery in Valpo, and I found out they have started distilling there. So
finally,
yep. So they got some stuff coming down the line. I think they actually did the tequila they just released there. So
can they call it tequila?
They're calling it tequila, yeah. I mean, I think it was made somewhere, but I think they barreled it there. I don't think they.
Okay.
Because I think it's barrel aged. I didn't try it, so I don't really know much about tequila.
It makes it like reposado or añejo, right?
Sure. Yeah. This isn't tequila with friends, so we're not going to give you information on that. But today we do have a guest today. It's not just going to be Adrienne and I trying to navigate our way through this podcast. We do have an amazing guest today. I will do the intro. We have Nicole Austin of Dickel. Get you to the stage. There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
Hi, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. How you doing?
Good. It's beautiful. Good. Yeah. The pollen is, happening. This is like the annual time of year when the South tries to repel like all of us Northerners through the power of pollen.
Yeah.
So I'm just, suffering through that right now. I have to like build my blending schedule around it now that I know that it's coming.
I know. Wow. I feel like every single time that I've had to go do any kind of tasting or anything like that, it's always when my allergies are just firing.
Yeah.
And people don't realize how like much that really does affect, because there's been times that I have done a tasting and my allergies have acted up and I've not liked something. And then I go back and I'm like, this is really good. What the hell happened last time?
It sends aromatics when you can't breathe through your nose.
Exactly. So, I always tell people like, no, it's fine. Just come in and work through it. I'm like, I don't think you actually physically can, but we'll try this. Yeah. So yeah, it's bad. It's bad up here. We're both in Indiana, for the record. but on opposite sides of the state.
And the most northern part of Indiana too. So
that is true. I'm basically Michigan. But yeah, well, let's get into it. We'll start off. Adrian's got some questions. Like I said, we're loose. We'll have questions. We'll start to bullshit at some point.
Great. Let's go.
Yeah. So there's been a few different podcasts where we've interviewed people that are chemical engineers. You're a chemical engineer.
Yes.
I'm always so curious to hear about how you made the transition to what you're doing now, and like what different kind of roles you played in your journey to become what you do now.
I think I would have started in this industry if anyone had told me that this was a thing that I could do with a chemical engineering degree.
That's awesome.
They don't mention it, it doesn't come up like at the job fair, So it really, I guess I'm like somewhat embarrassed to admit that it took me a while to even like realize that this was a thing that I could do.
Mm-hmm.
So I started actually in the water and wastewater treatment industry. So I was in New York City. Yeah, it was very different. I've been in like the New York City sewers many times. Every time on Law and Order, when they like find a body somewhere in the sewers, I've been there. Like, I know where that is. I have like a favorite wastewater treatment plant in New York City.
I've been in the subways in New York City, so I can't begin to imagine what the sewers are like.
Bodies there too, I'm sure. So
honestly, like both better and worse than you would imagine. Actually, my biggest challenge in that industry was the size of the spiders.
Oh.
And they are so well fed and they're very active.
Yeah. And angry.
I did not like that. Really had a hard time with that.
I wouldn't have guessed you would say that. Like, I remember seeing a rat in the subway there, and they're huge. They're like a house cat. Yeah. Right, but the spiders are big too, eh?
Like, they're so big. That was my probably biggest challenge in that industry. So I knew that was not where I wanted to stay forever. I thought that I was going to be like saving the planet and like working for this environmental engineering company. And then next thing you know, you're like batting around spider webs in like a 30-year-old wastewater treatment plant. Like, this is not what I wanted. So I'm kind of moving around, like, what do I want to do? And, exploring like drinking things of quality for the first time. When you reach your like early mid-20s and you're like, hey, quality may matter more than quantity. Like, what does it mean for like this to be good and enjoyable? And I was learning about whiskey from a really passionate bartender who was explaining to me how a particular whiskey was distilled. And I just had that like, holy shit. I really went to college to learn how to distill things in the context of like jet fuel. No one mentioned, that this is also how you make whiskey.
Yeah.
How cool, like I hadn't even really ever given any thought before that to like how that product was actually produced. And so that was really eye-opening for me. It was hugely exciting. It was like immediate. This is what I want to do with my life. Like, how cool. It's this, agriculture and culture and art and like math and science and this unique like American product, and they all come together. And I really want to do this. And I like look around, and there's like 6 companies at the time, and they're all run by like the grandson of someone's grandson of someone's grandson. So that's not ideal. It's not feeling very open. But I was really fortunate. It was just a couple years after that, really not long at all after that, the craft spirits movement really started.
Yeah.
To get some momentum behind it. So my first job in the industry, and I'm using the term loosely because typically you get paid when you do a job, but
typically,
you think, yeah,
was potato, was with Kings County Distillery in Brooklyn. So we were the first distillery to be licensed in New York City post-Prohibition. I started there in 2010, which was the year that they opened. I actually showed up like the first day they ever legally sold a spirit. It was like, I will work here now. Like, okay, we can't pay you, but that seems fine. Like, this will be fine. So I was both, I was doing my day job and working there for a long time. And then the way I became a full-time distiller was I was hired by a man named Dave Pickerel, who anyone who's been like a big whiskey fan for a long time probably knows that name. He was responsible for many craft bourbon. And so I worked with him in the consulting industry for a number of years, and then did some consulting on my own. So all while I was kind of still at Kings County, because our like 35-gallon stills did not pay my Brooklyn rent, and then shocker.
Yeah, not surprised.
Be like, some real financial realities, right? Our product takes a long time to make. But that was kind of how I got in. And then I had an opportunity to move to Ireland. So I was hired by William Grant & Sons in 2016 as a commissioning engineer for Tullamore Dew. So I moved to Ireland when they were building the grain whiskey distillery at Tullamore. Nice. So that was very cool. Yeah, it was a real grain to glass. It was probably will be maybe the only time in my lifetime that someone builds a modern grain whiskey distillery, like fully from greenfield up, So that was a really, really cool project to be a part of. And then while I was there is when Diageo called about this role. So in 2018, I moved back to the States to take the role of, at that time, general manager and distiller for Cascade Hollow. And I am now, should have looked up my new title because sometimes, but it's Director of American Whiskey Liquid Capabilities and something else that I really should know.
Don't worry. At some point it'll get shortened to an acronym like mine did. Like there was like this long thing, and then they're just like, we're gonna go ahead and make that PXSO because that's way too long to go into. So but that's awesome. Well, congratulations, obviously. That's do you miss Ireland?
I wanted to ask that too.
I did love it there. Yeah. It was like it's tough to be that far away from your family, right?
Well, of course.
Oh, sure.
I think it would be hard to have lived there for a really long time. I loved it. My horse, I could walk to the barn. Like the beautiful European towns, so they're so walkable. So from my perfectly reasonably priced and reasonably sized accommodations that I was living in, I could walk to like the barn where my horse was, or like 4 fantastic pubs, and like take the train into any major city or fly all over Europe for like $70. That was an incredible time, and everyone was so nice. Like the whiskey was, it was amazing, but it's tough you're always a little bit of a fish out of water. You don't, as much as I loved it, remember there. Yeah.
So I do have ties to Ireland quite a bit. So my entire family. So I don't know if you heard my making fun of my mother's accent. It's because she's Scottish. So is my whole family is. I'm the only person born in the States. So I have family over in Scotland, but technically, my parents were in. My dad lived in Northern Ireland. He was working for a company we all have heard of, which is DeLorean. So I think I was made in Ireland, but then they came over here, and so that's my connection. And I have been, and it's beautiful. And you're right. It's just, even though I have that connection there, it does feel like home in a lot of ways, Scotland to me. But you still have that. I'm like, I want to live here, but I just don't know if I could. Yeah. You really want, it's beautiful. What could you want more? Especially if you're a whiskey person, if you're a history person, it's just different when you're in a place like that. But no, I'm a big fan of Irish whiskey, so I'd love to pick your brain more on that, but we only have so much time. Dolly has a shitload of questions.
We're here to talk about George Dickel.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about.
Yeah. But we did interview 3 stacks?
2
stacks.
2 stacks.
Only 2 of them. So there's only 2 of them. Third one was gone that day.
You
no,
were MIA that day. I forgot.
The one time we like interview someone from Ireland, I'm not even there. So I do have a question.
You are a true Scotsman. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, I avoided the Irish.
Listen, I have learned is that whenever one of the teams is playing the English, Scots and Irish perfectly.
Yeah, they're friendly then. They're best friends then. That and when they helped William Wallace out, that was the only other time I think, which was in like the 12th century. So you've worked obviously since being at Dickel, probably on a lot of projects, I'm assuming.
Yes.
What was your favorite? And then which is one that maybe never came to fruition? I always like to hear about these things that don't happen. Just because, and it doesn't mean they were bad. It just means something happened. You know, something happened. It just didn't come to fruition. I'm always very interested in that because it's cool to hear what doesn't happen.
Oh, that's fun. So, well, it's interesting. The one that didn't happen was, so I when I got there, they had just commissioned this extra still section. So we kind of called it like the Franken still. So the way Dickel is produced is really distinct from the way like a classic kind of Kentucky scale distillery operates. I'm sure people have questions about like the charcoal mellowing process and what that does. And obviously I was super, super curious about that when I got there because it was really the only element of the process that I had never encountered or worked with directly before. And I kind of assumed, and I think a lot of people maybe assume that charcoal is, you know, like you encounter it typically in the context of filtration and like neutrality, you know, like it comes up in vodka or like water. And so I had this, I guess, curiosity of like, why would you use that on whiskey? Like something that's intentionally meant to be flavorful. Like, what does it do? And I think probably was one of the reasons maybe a lot of bourbon enthusiasts sort of turn their nose up at Tennessee whiskey because they come in with an assumption of like, well, bourbon is perfect. Why would you take anything out of it? Like, why would you filter anything out of it? Which, you know, fair question. Yeah. But when I got there, I found that the way the still was constructed was really distinct. So it looks similar, right? It looks like a column still that you would see in any Kentucky distillery, but typically a column still would have both a stripping and a rectification section. So like kind of the beer feed is like 2/3 of the way up, right? And there's like those sieve trays in the bottom 2/3 and the bubble caps in the top that kind of clean up, right? The spirit. We don't have a rectification section. So it's purely a stripping column and it does go through a pot, and the pot's really, you know, they serve to really kind of concentrate the flavor and almost act as like one additional tray. So the whiskey that was coming out, the spirit that's coming out of our distillation is very much not a finished product. So it's a lot more like a pot still low wine than it is, you know, what I would expect off of like a Kentucky distillate. So the charcoal really serves the purpose of the rectification section and like separating the desirable from the undesirable characteristics. Mm-hmm. So that's a long way to get around to saying when I got there, because of that structure, the distillery was really inflexible, right? Like it could make basically one thing. Yeah. Was this style of whiskey, right? And it really didn't work to, you know, you couldn't make anything that tasted like anything from anywhere else on this kind of apparatus. Or so we thought. More to come. But at the time, that was the belief. And so they had just installed a rectification section that we could like choose to use or not, which was actually a really cool setup. So you could, a lot more flexibility than you would ever normally get in a column still. So you could either like feed the normal way, or you could divert the vapor through this bubble cap section with as many trays as you wanted or not, which was a fun, cool thing. And so right when I got there, we started sort of taking that for a ride and making some interesting things that hadn't really been made there before. And one of them was 100% wheat whiskey. Oh, wow. It was absolutely gorgeous. And having just come back from Ireland, like it reminded me so much of that pot still display. You know, like that unmalted grain character, like grassy. And it was, I thought it was beautiful. And so we're like aging, and so excited. And when it was coming up to 4 years, I tried to get it off the ground as like in its own bottle as like I wanted it to be like a really approachable price. Anyone could get it, like this just like fun, light kind of pot still style whiskey. And I just like could not make the margins work. So it just the math was just not mathing in my favor. So the whiskey's gorgeous, and I'm still trying to figure out like what is the right bottle, because it's also kind of weird, like that's the challenging. Like it's a beautiful whiskey, but it's not an Irish whiskey. It's really not like a lot of most American whiskeys. So it's always, like when something doesn't exactly fit in a known category. So it's gorgeous, but I'm not sure what its home will be yet, unfortunately. Nice. So that's one that did not come to fruition. My favorite is probably what you're sipping on right now, which is the Leopold collaboration. Yeah.
I do have some tasting notes pulled up for that, sir, if you would like to impart your wisdom.
Oh, we're doing that now? Oh, just a lot of pressure. Here we go.
Well, I mean, I have it pulled up, and she did just talk about it. Do you want to talk a little bit about, let me see, what makes that blend what it is? Why it's named the Leopold Brothers blend?
Yes. So Leopold Brothers is an independent distiller in Colorado. Yep. They are, I think Todd is, one of the most talented distillers in the world today, just like full stop. He's so knowledgeable, so talented, and he has a really deep commitment to these like historic styles, kind of really exploring like the outer limits of flavor in distillation. And he's been working for nearly 15 years now on a project to resurrect a style of American whiskey that was dominant pre-Prohibition. Yeah. That is 3-chamber distilled rye. So he found a document from the IRS from 1902 when they were first trying to write the standards of identity that was going through in great detail the production processes of over 30 distilleries in that time. So it's as close as we can, they didn't often record a lot of like technical details about their production. Yeah. It's really hard to find. So he found this document and was reviewing it. And the thing that struck him the most was they were all using, almost all but one of the rye whiskey distillers was using a style of still that he had never heard of, which was this 3-chamber still. So, you're a professional distiller, and there's this piece of apparatus that was apparently one thing to discover some weird esoteric thing that someone did like up a mountain at one point, but it's quite another to discover, apparently this was the standard for one of the most famous styles of whiskey in the world. And what we just forgot how it was made, that was very intriguing for him. So he called around, did a lot of digging, found that probably the last 3-chamber still was decommissioned around the 40s. So there's really no one alive today that you could even ask how it ran or what they did with it. So it's just the leap of faith that you have to take as a small business to invest in something like this. He convinced Vendome to build him one. They were like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to work. Are you sure?
Hey, Vendome, can you build this for me?
From 1892, Wow. So he is the only one in the world right now running this kind of still at any sort of commercial scale. It makes a wildly distinct product. So the technical operation of this still is wildly complex, but essentially it's high residence time and high pressure, which means higher temperature than a pot or a column still. So column stills are typically very low residence time, really efficient, right? Pot stills, really high residence time, really inefficient, but they're not under any kind of pressure, right? So actually the temperatures you reach are relatively low. Mm-hmm. So it's not a hybrid. It's a totally different style of distillation that genuinely extracts completely different aromatics than you would otherwise capture in a different scenario. The is wild.
So that's got, I don't know. I always say this, but I'm certainly the novice of this group when it comes to distilling and all things when it comes to whiskey. But
So
my first thought
everyone's
is,
a novice.
Yeah.
you said rye. So my first thought is, if it's distilling completely different, are you going to use the same like grain? Are you going to use the same,
no, it's
you know?
So of course he also found the like period appropriate varietal of rye and got a rye farmer to like bring it back from 5 seeds from the seed bank so that he could also, because he's Todd, so he takes everything very seriously. So he got the period appropriate grain. He's also, they have a malting floor, so he also malted his own barley. It's a classic 80-20 recipe. It's, yeah, no, he does everything. It's not the still alone. Like he has a brewing background, so his mastery of fermentation is pretty
Okay, well then that explains a lot. That explains a lot.
You know what?
only going to extract flavors that you put in. So like that is the grain and the fermentation part are deeply essential to the character of what he's producing. But I think the still is the more unique. And so he makes this rye. I think he was originally intending to sell it on its own. He thought that was what the whiskey was, right? Like of this period. And it's aging and it's like very funky. Like,
Yeah.
kind of at first you're like, oh, thank God it's really distinct, because if it wasn't distinct,
Then what was the
is just invent the world's least efficient, most expensive way to make rye. Like fancy. But so it's really distinct, which at first is quite comforting to him, and then as it's aging, you start to realize like there's no way anyone was stirring in Manhattan with this. Like it's very weird. Todd often describes it as whiskey that you would sip on a porch and contemplate death with.
Oh yeah. That's what I was doing right now, actually.
Right there.
So that's chamber on its own. And he's like, this can't be right. Either I messed up or I missed something, does some more digging, finds some really good process flow diagrams that indicate very clearly that the 3-chamber rye, which was called heavy bodied rye, was being blended with light bodied rye off of a column still. Which as soon as you see that, you're like, duh, of course it is. Because that's every other major whiskey producing country's tradition, right? If you make grain whiskey, you blend it with these like really flavorful single malts and you have blended scotch, right? Like Canadian whiskey is a blend of these lighter whiskeys and these like flavor marks, right? Like, of course we were doing the same thing. It's like, how did I not see this? But also I can't go back in time and distill rye. So he called me. It's like, do you have any that would be interesting? And also, could you help me blend it? Because he typically sells single barrels, right? So you don't really have to blend anything. And it was during COVID. And so I was just like, I was so excited. I love Todd. I respect Todd so much. And also, like, how often in your career do you get an opportunity to resurrect like a lost style, So, like, hell yeah, of course, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm in.
yeah, absolutely. So I call my boss. I'm like, hey, I want to do this thing. It's really important to me. I super believe in it. Not sure anyone in Diageo is going to like it or get it. Do you have my back? It's like, absolutely, just move fast. So we got that thing in bottle in 6 months, which is unheard of for Diageo. And it's a blend of my own column distilled rye from Tullahoma. So not MGP rye, but my own rye, which is the first time I'd ever put that in a bottle, which was also exciting. And then Todd's 3-chamber rye. So that's what you're smelling. And so those like big, bright top aromatics, that like really interesting, almost floral character, that is coming from his 3-chamber distillate. That like undertone of caraway and chocolate and like that piney, that's very much coming from his 3-chamber distillate. But that sort of juicy middle is coming from my rye. So they're really kind of stacking on top of one another to build this beautiful whiskey. I've never drank anything like it, and I'm so proud of it. Like it's not often that you get to do that, like they're independent. We put their name on the bottle. Like I am, giving them cash flow for like maybe one of the first time. It just feels good all around. It feels so good. Like the whiskey's good, the ethics feel good, the history is interesting. Like
it's all there.
Yeah, I love that.
All the pieces are there that you need, for real. I just love the tasting notes too that you have listed here. They're really
I haven't looked at them yet.
They're just unique.
They're wild.
You want to give a few,
I'll
Marky?
give, yeah. So and Nicole, I didn't look at them because I didn't want to know. I just don't ever because Adrian enjoys like when I just somehow hit one, and I guarantee
he does. He'll
I won't hit
say
any.
like all these notes, and I'm like, that's exactly what I'm reading here. How did you know? He doesn't read them. I trust him.
Yeah. It's either she trusts me or she knows the laziness side. So I'll start off on nose because this is the first one I poured, and I got to be honest.
You should have said I wouldn't have said anything. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. Like when you started saying them, I blanked myself out, so I didn't hear all of them. Like I purposely did that. Like I put myself on mute for half a second.
Okay.
Because I mean that's fine. Like that's the cool thing.
Well, I'm sure you already had some in your mind, probably too, since I had already asked you.
I did, and also like that's the thing. Like even if the cool thing is, even if I said something she didn't say or did say, that everybody's tasting notes are different. Yeah, like it's you never really know.
You could sit with for a very long time.
Yeah. The one that like was just right off. And I think this may be coming from your side of things, just based on what you told me about the rye that you provided. It's just the most blueberry note I think I've ever nosed on a whiskey. So, and I say blueberry is a generic berry, could be any berry, really. I mean, blackberry. It's a tart berry.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's in that was so like right off the bat, like, and so that was something I loved. Then I underneath that. I don't know. I think maybe the one thing is I did pour the bottled and bond, and I went to nose that like in the middle of it. And the bottled and bond has this note that like I talk about all the time. And the first time I ever had it was it was a Blood Oath product, or Luxor, but Blood Oath. And it was like this. It's like a cornbread. Like it's like, just like a very like just I don't know, it's a cornbread note, and that sounds very obvious because of whiskey.
It's made from corn.
Yeah, but it's not the same. It's almost like this very yeasty, like this quality that like is. I just always pick it up, and I've never really been able to nail it down. But I think I was starting to get it in that. I also to me very much like I get the hay. I get there's not a lot of mint to this rye, which is actually cool because I feel like I've been drinking a lot of ryes that are very much in that profile. That I like when I come to one that's got that little bit more, that's not quite that, and has more of like an herbal, like tea quality to it.
Very much.
You know what I mean? Palate.
Like floral, you might say.
like the palate
floral.
Yeah, like I mean, the other day I bought myself a bouquet of roses. No, I'm joking. I didn't do that, but
yeah.
I do get like that rose, like on the palate, like, and it's
from tops. And that's the interesting thing about that note is when you nose the 3-chamber on its own, you don't see it at all because the kind of on its own it's so concentrated and powerful that those lighter effects are really hard to see. But then under dilution, like when they're put into part of the blend, they become much more visible. Was really fun for me to work with, like as a blender. That was surprising, and even just like 0.5% difference made a huge difference in how that blend was presenting. And those top notes were like the most shocking piece of that, because you don't smell them. Like you put these two things together and you find something that wasn't there before.
I'm still like just blown. I don't know. I love that whole story that you just told about the 3-chamber pot stone, or the whole thing. Like that nobody was doing this, and he like unearthed this whole thing. Like that's history. That's like you said, people aren't living who did this.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think going forward, when we ask questions like that of other guests, if they don't have at least that long and good of an explanation, we kick them off right away.
Yeah, just
because you know what I mean. Like
the only other person you can have on then is Todd, and you should.
That sounds like we need to talk to Todd. I mean, I kind of wish he was here to enjoy the story with you.
He's the nicest man in the industry. Like
him. We'll get him. We'll get Joe, who we just did O'Sullivan. We'll get Murphy Quint, because that man can tell us a story.
Oh, I know. But Tom, Joe, and I can definitely go on.
Murphy, you haven't met Murphy Quint yet from Cedar Ridge? You'll love him.
He's fun.
That man is
a good dude. And
He's in
he's
the
kind
same
of
vein.
like, obviously same vein because, I don't know. He's kind of a little mad scientist,
Yeah. And
that's
just
fun too.
Yeah, the stuff they're doing with single malts is super cool. And again, I think that's just what we interview all people, and I do like hearing all kinds of perspectives, of course. But
Yes.
when I get an answer like that and I can hear it, and somebody is like genuinely excited about pot stills, that's when I know. Like that's like when I know, like that, like I'm like, okay, we're talking. This is our people.
Yeah,
that was great. I do enjoy this one quite a bit.
He was working for years, and he was like only sharing it with a really small group of us because, and he laughs about this now, he was worried that someone would come in and try and like copy him, because he was the only one. And then we now laugh because like it's so hard, and it's.
I was gonna say nobody's copying that.
But I was thinking, keeping this a secret, like who in their right mind would take this on?
I was gonna say, like you said, I think to invest in something that's so different and so off the wall, and to ask Vendome to do something for you, like people aren't willing to take that type of risk. Oftentimes, I don't think so. I absolutely loved hearing the story. I feel like
I used to live in Colorado, and I'm trying to remember where Leopold is. Why am I blanking on that?
They're in Denver.
Is it Denver?
Yeah.
Did I go to them? Why am I asking you guys? I was there.
Martin lived in Colorado at one time. That's why he's kind of like.
I'm trying to remember if I've been here. I went to so many distilleries when I was there. And I went to I was at Laws all the time, but I don't know if I ever went to Leopold.
Their liqueurs are gorgeous.
Yeah, Colorado distilleries. There's just something different about the vibe of the distillery.
To go out there.
Yeah,
gosh, I would love to go out there.
Yeah, I mean Boulder Spirit, Vapor Distillery, Boulder Spirits, and like I said, Laws and Shanahan's. I mean, great people doing great things.
Golden Moon, R.I.P. They're so good.
Yeah, it's true. I heard. Yeah, they were. There's another one I talked to recently too. They're relatively new, and they're called 477. Doing some, but they're like it's kind of cool to see a distillery at the very beginning.
Yes.
Like really, like when I first started going there, I remember I just walked by. I'm like, oh, it's a distillery. Let me walk in, and it was like literally they only had like cordials. But they were like, our whiskey's coming soon. I'm like, that is so cool though. I'm like, it's fine that you don't have it right now. That's actually, can I see it? And so they ended up taking me in the back and like showing me stuff. And I'm like, this is so cool. To see it at the beginning, because they're so small. So I love seeing stuff at the beginning of a journey too, as much as I love seeing something that's so established like Dickel as well.
Spirit is cool too. I was there for judging, and they have this honey cask finish single malt that really like not something I would normally have thought that I would like, but it was delicate and like sophisticated and just really done with like a very deft hand, not over on the honey, like just giving you the big bright kind of hay field characteristic of honey. It was really nice. I was surprised.
What do you I've been sort of on a weird thing lately where I reorganized. This is just some of my whiskey back here. I don't have that much really. I used to have a shitload more, but I realized it's stupid to have that much. And moving whiskey is terrible.
New York City, the floor walk up.
It's so hard. I mean, and so I try to downsize, but I noticed that I'm not gravitating towards finished whiskey as much as I used to. What are you, for someone that's obviously doing what you do? What's your opinion of that? Like the boom that's happening. Like
I exist in a world with Bill Lumsden at the same time, and he is the So why am I going to take that on? It's like when you have experienced perfection, it just always was like someone has already like summited that peak, and so I do not need to explore. I'm curious. Like we tried it. We did a brandy cask finish at Kings County. Actually, I really loved. But it gave me a real understanding of actually how challenging it is to produce a cask finish consistently. Because, you in one cask, what happens at 30 days, and another one will be 35, and another one will be 62, and like it's very cyclic. And you can go and sample that thing every day, and it's different, and that it's hard to do well consistently. So I would say typically skeptical unless it's a producer that I really, really like, trust and respect.
Yeah.
Bill. So I think there's a place. It's possible to do them very, very well. It's also really hard, which makes it also quite possible to do it not well, and have the, either the whatever element was in the cast, like the port or the sherry or whatever, just be really overpowering, or you can have a lot of extraction when you're using wine casts. You're putting something high proof and something that only maybe before held something that was like 14 or 30%. So you can get a lot of extraction too of like that, like young wood character that's not, ideal. So, they're hit or miss for me. It's not what I would typically go towards.
I want to. I just don't think that it's. I've started to realize what my profile is, and it's not that I don't ever want to check out other stuff, but like you sort of like I just can tell what I gravitate towards more, and it's just not. But you bring up Bill's name, so then what's your favorite Glenmorangie bottle then?
I mean, he just did this one, Tale of the Forest.
I haven't tried it, but I saw it. Yeah.
Again, why is he so good at things, and do I have to exist in the world at the same time as him? It's not fair. He did this, like, he made, instead of using peat smoke in the malting process of the barley, he was using other like traditional herbs, so like juniper and pine, and like, so there's like a slight smoky character, but it's bringing this very like herbaceous, foresty kind of forest floor aromas with it. And again, because it's Bill, it's not heavy-handed. It's like very and very balanced and complex. And it was just, again, hitting that nail of like something that's genuinely unique, but also still really recognizable as like the peak of its category, which is very much what I was aiming for, I think, with that collaboration rye blend. Something like, it's different, it's distinct, but also I recognize this as a rye, and I would put it among the top of the rye. And I think he did that with Tale of the Forest as well. Like, I recognize this as a single malt, but it's different than anything I've smelled. And that's hard to do. It's easy to be weird. It's not so easy to be weird and good.
It's absolutely, and I think that's why, like, I mean, so
it's easy to be weird, but not weird and good. I like that. I like that.
Hard.
You're so right.
That's
true.
So right.
Yeah, because I know for a fact that like there's never been a reaction for me where there's a lot of reactions where I'm just like, oh, this is so weird, I love it, but there's never been a reaction like this is weird, but it's like Malort. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's too weird. You know what I mean? Like, and like, it's gone too far. You know what I mean? And so I know when something like that has happened where it's just like, but no, yeah, Bill is one of those, like obviously I've never met the man, but like I have many heroes I have so many heroes in the Scotch world that, and he's obviously one of them, who is, I mean, you listen, he's one of those guys you listen to in interviews and halfway through you're like, I'm going to need you to write all this down. Just because like I got to look up half the things you just said.
For sure.
Yeah, great guy. Yeah. All right. Well, we've nerded out for a second, Adrian. Let's go.
Let's go. Is it my turn?
Yeah. Well, let's nerd out some more then.
Oh man, what should I don't even know where to go.
I know. I love it when like the guest answers all of our questions.
What?
I said I love when the guest answers our questions before. It's the best because it's just like
it is. You make our job so easy.
It's awesome. I love it.
And nothing's going to top the story of the three chamber still. Like nothing's going to top that. Like I'm going to be telling everybody about that.
He made a YouTube video. Like it's Todd and he's a chatter, so it's like 45 minutes long. It's just fair.
Oh, there's a YouTube video.
Yes, if you like Google like Leopold three chamber, he goes into
I'll find it.
Yes, it is.
Can't wait.
For worth it.
Can't wait. I have some Martin, and I have some good friends that I know will also be very appreciative of that as well. What I would say though is from a woman's perspective and being a woman in the industry, do you feel like you're seeing more women in the industry now as opposed to maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago? I don't know. Give me your take on that. You know, you wonder I hear about women in other industries like automotive, or even for me, I'm in the printing industry, and there can be the stigma, but not always. So give me your take on that.
I mean, if you can find me a job that I can do where I also don't have to deal with the patriarchy at all, like, I will do that job. That sounds fun. But
yes, I agree. You're right.
Delightful. But I'm not sure that exists like in the world anywhere. So like I just sort of take that as, I guess, that's just a reality of like what is happening right now and has been happening. And so, okay, that aside, what do I want to do? Because you're going to run into it no matter where you go, like in every facet of your life in some way, shape, or form, and
right.
Okay, if it can't be avoided, then you just have to work around it and like find your way and find your passion. I think it helps, there were some other women who I saw who were like a little bit visible in the industry before I came in. I remember reading about Rachel Berry when she was working with film. I was like, okay, that's like, it's encouraging to just see and know that it's possible. But the more I learned about the industry, the more I realized that women have been here the whole time, of course. And you just didn't always see them, right? Like so much of our impression of what the industry is so shaped by like, how it's happening to us, of course, because most people don't get to walk into a distillery and see ads, of course, that's how everyone develops opinions of things. But I think the marketing has always been more male dominated than the actual industry was. Like women have been here the whole time, just maybe not the way it was like sold. And definitely, still to this day, I think which company you work for and who you work with is hugely impactful in terms of your quality of life and like, how you're treated as a person. And I think that's
right, because there's leadership within those businesses, right? And the leadership says everything about the company.
And I think that's a lot more of an impact than what industry you're in,
Yeah, cool. It's the hope, right? I mean, I know just from.
I think women are better blenders. I'm just gonna say that.
I mean, yeah,
for sure. I just want to throw that out there.
There's always obviously the hope is just it's all collaboration, but like the thing where I started noticing, well, obviously with Rachel Berry, Glendronach, and things like that was just like. I remember when it switched because it was Billy Walker who was doing like the 15-year Glendronach, and then all of a sudden he had left and went. I think at that point he was over at like Ben Riach or something like that. But when Rachel Berry had taken over, I saw the signature change, and it was something. I just remember grabbing that thing and just like. My reaction is awesome. Like, let's go. Like, but like I could see that reaction could change. And you did sort of see like a little bit less of that, like less like, oh, this isn't Billy doing it anymore. We know Billy, this is somebody else doing it. But then she'd been around forever before that. So it's so interesting that stigma, that initial reaction. But I love now that I've seen, women created distilleries, more and more people like, that's why I love going to law so much, because they obviously are so, that's a huge focus of their company, and everybody's a master distiller there. So nobody ever feels like, that there's kind of a hierarchy and those kind of things. So I do feel like it's going in the right direction, but like you said, you just don't know because it is so dominated. So, and that's
in a broader context,
Yeah.
Nothing you can do about that. Like we exist in a world that is so much bigger than our own. And there's a lot of, ups and downs.
There is,
being experienced. So I don't know. I'm just in my little corner and it feels really nice. And I have like lots of amazing lady friends in the industry doing like awesome things. And I think hopefully we're not too far away from there being so many of us that it becomes just not even
exactly
anymore. And honestly, I think we're not that far, really.
I think so. I genuinely do. I like the huge difference between like when I first got into the hobby and was looking and researching stuff and seeing the shift, and it's really, really great. Especially in places you might have before been like, I never really expected that.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Like regions or like specific, things. I'm like, that's great, because if it starts there, then it's easier to get into places that are going to be more pushing for that. So now to slightly move away from whiskey, still whiskey involved.
Okay. Ooh, where are we going?
Slightly. So usually we have a question that just sort of ties with whiskey, but doesn't always have to do it. So we used to have a question that was related to a squirrel-themed question, but we don't do those anymore just because we kind of ran out of questions. It was basically to ask some kind of squirrel-themed question, like if a squirrel had to run your distillery for a day, what job would you give it? So
Mine. Be fine.
Take mine. But what I'm going to ask you is we kind of switched some things up, and myself, and actually when I spoke to Joe last week, I learned in that interview that he might be more of a film nerd than I am. Because good Lord. But so I asked him a film related question. So I was going to try to switch it up this week. So because you've been a part of so many different projects here and done, Dickel, like, and when we asked you like that kind of favorite one that you did, which is obviously the one we're drinking right here. If you could only have one album to listen while drinking this bottle, what would it be?
Another bottle. Ooh.
That's a good question.
I mean, so the first answer that comes to your mind is always the right answer, right? It's just like
I would agree with that. That's your gut.
Your mind, right? So I'm thinking like Sleater Kinney was the first thing that came into my head, right?
Okay.
It's just like that's where my vibe is at. That was the first answer that popped into my mind, so it must be right. Some part of my subconscious thinks that they are the right artist to be listening to.
Sleater Kinney. Right.
So the thing you know about Adrian is that Adrian was probably listening to T-Pain before we started this podcast. So
it was. So I'm a little bit of a hip hop R&B kind of girl, but I do enjoy all types of music, but I don't know if I know that artist. So I'm kind of trying to Google it or look it up.
Yeah, I don't know why. Also, I must be in a nostalgic mood because the other thing that popped into my brain is like Fugazi. Like, I think actually that might be great because it's very, eclectic, but like balanced and kind of borrowing from a lot of different traditions, but like still sitting in one genre. Yeah,
that would be perfect for this because of the mending of the different things.
It definitely feels like one of the like. It's got like I always like to like.
What would you give it music, Martin? What kind of music would you give it?
Well, so and so I'm a mostly kind of heavy metal, death metal kind of guy, but like I do like other genres, and that other genre I seem to always go like the complete opposite of something like that. So I get into like very much like folk, like Gregory Alan Isaacoff, people like him. So I think it reminds me of when I lived in Dallas and I first sort of got into that music, and like I would pour something and like I always got like this dusty quality. Like when I had a dusty, I'd throw his albums on because it's just got this. And because of the interesting fact is that like this is an old style of whiskey. So it's got to me, it's just got that kind of vibe where I feel like I should be, I don't know, in the mountains or something. Looking over a flock of, I don't know what kind of flock of animals I'm looking over, but I'm doing it.
Music.
Yeah, it's got that vibe. Like I'd be like, I wouldn't be playing the banjo because I wouldn't know how, but I'd have someone there doing it. You know what I mean? Like someone else would be doing it.
I know what it is. Then we should listen to Gillian Welch and Tear My Still House Down.
Yeah. Okay.
Folky song for this.
Yeah.
Folky
definitely a folky vibe for me on this one. And then honestly, this Bottle and Bond, I'm listening to some. It's got some bite, but it also is chilled. Now I'm gonna listen to some Deftones on this one.
Ooh.
They're white. The White Pony era when they tamed a little bit, but they still had a whole little heavy vibe to them. So
yeah, they polished it up a little. They
did. Yep, they did.
Like, you got your undertone of strength and power, but like that everyone could appreciate. That's a good one for the Bottle and Bond. It's like this is a big whiskey. It's 100 proof. 12-year-old whiskey, but also like, don't worry, it's polished up, it's nice. Like,
yeah, it's gonna put its arm around you for a minute and say it's okay, man.
In the right set of circumstances, anyone should be able to enjoy this wine.
I'd agree with that. So it's very approachable, and I think that is because,
too, by the way, with a 12-year-old 100 proof American whiskey.
I imagine, like, because the oak starts to take over sometimes. So
which I'm totally okay with.
She loves anything.
I love
double
oak anything.
Okay, well then you'll have to make your way down to Kentucky when I release.
I'm an oaky girl. I've been on the rye kick. I've been on the rye train here lately, but yeah, it's even the double oak rye. I just can't. I can't get enough of it. The darker, the better.
You shouldn't say that.
I know, but it's just my thing.
Our friends are sitting here right now being like, Adrian.
But I know they're laughing at me, but it's true.
Now you have to pick an album, Adrian.
I
know you haven't tasted this yet, but just
I haven't, but I mean,
by what we
based on what you're saying, I know of I can think of this song, but I can't. I'm struggling with the artist, but she's a very. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. It's a.
Watch, it's like Megan Thee
She's
Stallion.
a very like folky, but she's in Tennessee.
Oh.
Her name is. Let me find it. Library.
Her name is
Maddie Diaz is her name. She sings a song called Worst Case Scenario, but that I love. And that's not like imparting on the whiskey, obviously, because I haven't had the opportunity to try it. But her vibe, like her sound, was really a nice.
The loss of the body really was the worst case scenario for you. So
it really was, yeah.
It's true. Not getting it, yeah. I mean, after hearing about all of this, I'm kind of like, well, damn, But yeah, she's out of Nashville, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I learned about her through another bourbon enthusiast on IG. So yeah, she's pretty great. I would say that would be. She has a new album out that's really good. So.
My dog is here staring at me, being like, "Are you going to take me out? Are you going to take me out?"
Oh my God.
So, it's time for my supper. You're not the first person to tell us that. No. We promise. So I have one more question before we go. I have one more question. We always like to ask this question. It's a whiskey memory. So if you have like your favorite ever whiskey memory, it could be watching adults when you were a kid. It could be, something in Ireland when you were there. What's your favorite whiskey memory or spirit?
God.
Sorry, puppy. You're gonna have to wait a little longer.
Sorry.
we gave her a complicated one.
They want to make a cameo. We can give them a cameo.
Is your favorite whiskey memory the whiskey you're gonna drink on this walk, Mom?
Yeah. It's like just do it.
No, I think so. My family has a lot of like holiday traditions, and we love to get together like as a whole family. And it's not just like the one day on Christmas, it's like an entire week of festivities. And it's one of those things that, no matter where you're living in the world, it's like we come back home for that. And my mom's family, when she was growing up, they used to make like pictures of Manhattans for parties. Yeah, because it was like the 70s, right? And that's what people did. Yeah, that's what she did. So when I got into the spirits industry, we could resurrect that tradition. And when I first used this collaboration rye, like it's for mixing. Like this rye is meant to be, and is, I guess, the closest you can come to tasting what rye whiskey tasted like at the birth of American cocktail culture, right? So it's meant, like when the Manhattan was invented, this is what they would have made it with.
Wow.
I started making pictures of perfect Manhattans for my family's Christmas Eve party, and like just pulling out the vintage pitcher and like, we had the first time I did it was this one Christmas Eve, and we were in my aunt's house, like on the creek, and it was snowing, and like we're all just playing games, and the dog was
perfect.
Yeah, it was just perfect. It was just
I love that.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, and everyone in the family was enjoying their Manhattans. It was just that's what it's for. Bring it together.
Yeah, that's my favorite question, just for the record.
Our hope is that someday, we've asked that question we've been doing this podcast for just about a year. I think we're just past 50 episodes as us as hosts.
Yeah.
And we have like a collection of so many of those stories that we want to like do something with it, because it just
like a book.
It feels like there's so many cool insights to different like because it does it tells you a little bit of why you do this.
A meaning until you share it with someone. Really.
Yeah. Absolute. At 100%. That's why it's called Bourbon with Friends, for real. Yeah.
And the first quote I ever heard was like when I started giving a shit about whiskey, really. And it was a guy he's a YouTuber. His name is Roy Dove Aquavite. And it was it's not whiskey until it's shared. And like that's literally like stuck with me since I first started like getting into this stuff. And it's just like, it's true, because I'll have a sip and a pour, but there's just something different about being around people and just letting it kind of guide the conversation. And so we do that here. That's why we don't prep a lot. So, but that is it. So
I think that's all. Yeah.
We want to thank you absolutely so much for joining us on Bourbon with Friends podcast here. And guys, for those, hopefully I don't know how to do it in the moment because it's Joe's job and he's off gallivanting in Kentucky right now.
I can take us out.
Oh, I meant like how you put the little scroll thing at the bottom. So he'll edit that in later with like your website.
We can put in your website and all that good stuff. Right.
Anything you want to plug as far as upcoming releases, anything like that?
No, in the word you can't. I'm not allowed to.
Oh, okay. You can tell us after, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And we won't say anything.
We won't say anything. We just won't record it.
Yeah. All right, Adrian, take us on out. We don't get to do this.
All right, everybody. I'm trying to. I don't know. It just left me there for a second, but I guess remember, everybody. Bourbon with Friends can change the world. Cheers,
everybody.
Cheers.
All right, guys, I want to thank our sponsor, 10th Mountain Whiskey. You can find them on all social media platforms, as well as 10thwhiskey.com. You can use the code BWF15 for a 15% discount. That's pretty cool. Get some money off. Buy your friends something. Buy your family something. If your friends like whiskey, if your family likes whiskey, you can buy them that. But if they don't, you can buy them a hat. We'd love for you to go there and check them out and buy their products. You can also find them in 42 different states through online distribution, as well as 30 states across the country through regular retail distribution, guys. That's pretty cool. And it's growing because, the distribution is growing. We're not getting more states. So basically, if you do have any questions, you can reach out to 10thwhiskey.com. They'll be happy to answer anything that you may have. And of course, we thank 10th Mountain Whiskey for being our sponsor on the podcast.
That's it for this episode of Bourbon with Friends. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a review to make it easier for others to find the show. You can also check us out on Instagram at Bwfpodcast. Thanks for listening.